Hi, welcome everyone. Chris Petri here. Thanks so much for coming by. We're having a great time. We're doing some portrait painting. We're having a really interesting look at all the steps you'll need to do to create a really enjoyable and pleasant, positive, pleasing looking portrait painting by just going through a number of steps that you have to follow, some processes. But if you follow those that I'm going to show you here in this video, you'll be able to paint portrait paintings with no problem. And the more times you repeat the process, we always say here on my channel, repetition is the mother of skill. So if you're going to have skills with portrait painting, you're just going to be doing the repetition of all of the processes that we're going to show you here. And every time you do this process from A to Z all the way through, like we're going to show you here, each time you go through it, your portrait painting is going to look a little better each time. And then you can also do a lot more interesting and fun things with portrait painting. You can do, not only something like this, like a basic, composition like this. You can do family members, friends, loved ones. You can do your favorite musicians, your favorite actors and actresses, politicians. You could just you can also exaggerate some of the features and do kind of like you can like do spin-offs and do like caricatures and kind of exaggerate some of the features and things like this, so that it's not just like a slavishly following this process we're doing here. You're able to eventually kind of spin it off and do other very much more interesting and creative things. But this would be like the basic start to it. So if you can get these first basics going, try it out a few times, start working with it a little bit, I think you'll find that if you do have that kind of inclination to really want to get creative and do some portrait work, you could have a lot of fun with it. And it's just a matter, again, of going through the methods and techniques that we're going to show you here. So stick with me here for the next hour or so, and we'll go through it. Maybe watch this 2 or 3 times first. And then as you watch it 2 or 3 times, you kind of will get familiar with what we're doing more. And then you can jump in and grab your brushes, your pencils, and get started and do it. And then once you get that done, your first painting, your first portrait, go ahead and do as many as you want. All right, so we're going to get started. And glad you're here. Really excited you're here to do this portrait painting with me. And again, this is just the very, very start, the very beginning of your journey with doing some portrait work. If you as an artist, want to start delving into this. Okay? All right, so let's get started. All right, this is Chris Petri here, and we're going to do some portrait painting. Let's talk about, just for a few seconds here, we saw in the beginning of the video here, we just saw the finished painting that we did of this portrait here, and we'll just kind of talk about how we got there, how we got to that painting, that finished painting. So the first thing we want to do is I'm going to use this as my guide. I'll do this again in pencil so we can kind of look at this and just go over it. But basically, the human head, we could just say it's sort of like an egg shape, round. You can make the egg shape either wider at the bottom and kind of pointier at the top, or wider at the top and pointier at the bottom. Depends on people's, whoever you might be drawing. It might be a picture from a magazine. Maybe your favorite musicians. Maybe you're going to be painting someone from your family, photographs, other people's paintings, whatever it is. You kind of, if you stick with just the general idea of maybe an egg or an oval shape, you're going to be fine. So this was what we're going to just replicate this again, and we'll go over this again a second time. So basically, we get that oval shape, and then we just kind of say, like, for reference, let's go with a 4-inch high human head. So we're just going to go 1. We'll put our first hash line up here that's the first hash mark at the first point there, and then we say 1, 2, 3, and 4. Maybe we'll go 3.5 inches, make it a little smaller, but 4 inches is a good number. If you can make your portraits about 4 inches high, you're going to be fine. That'll be a perfect number of in units of measurement, 4 inches. 3.5 to 4 inches, really nice size for the human head when you're pencil drawing and painting in watercolor. And then if you want to add a body or do the full figure, you're all set. You have your first part's going to be all set now. You have so you can do your oval like that, just a simple oval, and then we're just going to break that in half. So, you could take, the measurements here again, and you could use centimeters, inches, the metric or standard is fine. If we use the centimeters here, 9, 4.5, so 4.5 centimeters here is half, and this is 9 centimeters, so 4.5 would be the halfway point, and then you just take a pencil line and make a halfway point like that. So I'll go over with a little bit of a darker pencil line so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. So again, we started out with the oval, just making an oval like that for the human head, and then we said it was about inch and 3.5 inches, or 9 centimeters. Then we divide it in half like this. Now the halfway point is basically the eyes, kind of simple. So if you have your center mark, which is the center of the head like this, coming down like this, you're going to have basically 5 eye lengths across your head, and that pretty much gives you the proper amount of eye lengths across your painting. So we'll do this. We'll say the first center point is going to be 1 eye length here. So you make an oval here and say, okay, that's the first. That's the eye length between the 2 eyes. Then you say, okay, the eyes here, 1 and 2 over here. And then there's another eye length here, which is about where the temple is of our human head. So this is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eye lengths across. Kind of simple. And then the ears are always usually at the top of the eye and come down like this, like that. So the top of your ears are right at this at the same height as the center of the eyes. And again, we're sticking with this drawing that we did here. So I'm using this just to refer back to, so I can kind of just keep everything nice and neat. Okay, so you have those eye lengths, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The ears, top of the ears are usually at the same level as the top of the center of the eyes, like that. Okay, then next we notice that the bottom of the nose is halfway between the eyes and the chin. So we take another halfway point here. You could measure it, or you can just kind of roughly say that's about halfway. That looks pretty good. But let's just see what we have here. So from the center of the eyes here, so we have our eyes here. From the center of our eyes down to the bottom of our nose is 2 centimeters, or approximately 7/8 of an inch, or even a little bit less than that, 3/4 of an inch. 3/4 of an inch, like that. Then we can put the nostrils here, just a little indication of the nostrils, like that. Okay. And then these are some things you would definitely note starting out with the portrait paint, if you're doing some portraits, because this is basically just like your general good design of the head and where all of the features are. And then we just move right along here and say, okay, well, the nose is halfway, the bottom of the nose is halfway, again between the eyes and the chin, and then the lips are halfway between the bottom of the nose and the chin. So we just go down there and say about halfway is the lips and the mouth, the dental arch. So we do that. We have the mouth, like that. And then we have a chin here. We just put the chin at the bottom, like so. Just a rough indication of the chin there. And then we can do just a little bit of some detail to the lips, like that. And then the bottom lip here. And we kind of just have, that's really like the layout for the head. And then you have your hair line up here, which is just a little bit down from the top of the head. You have like the hairline up here, like this. And of course, sometimes people's hair is longer, so they might have their hair coming across like this, like that. But that's about it. We kind of have the main idea of things, the main layout of the human head. And then our neck over here, the neck is usually a little bit in from the side of the head. This would be like your temple areas over here. So the temple of the head there next to the ears is a little bit like that. And then again, your neck is going to be about, I would say, yeah, the neck is pretty close to just a little bit in from the sides of the head is going to be your neck. And then there's, different people have, maybe someone that's very athletic. Like this person looks like they're very athletic. They have a wider neck. Some people that are maybe not as athletic, their neck might be a little thinner. But that's pretty much the layout of the human head. And that's, again, I did it here. And we just talked about how, if you draw an oval and then you drew a line across halfway, that's your center of your eyes. Right across here, the center of your eyes here. And then if you go from the center of your eyes down to your chin again, the center between the eyes and the chin is going to be the bottom of the nose here. So between the bottom of the chin, bottom of the nose, and the eyes, bottom of the nose is approximately halfway to the chin. Some angles, when you see certain paintings or drawings or, photographs and things, sometimes if someone's photographed with someone with the camera looking up at the portrait or the person, things might change a little bit with these dimensions like this. These, basic measurements. We can go into that at a later time, but basically this is all the basics you would need. And then you have a perfect start to, drawing and painting the, human head, the portrait in watercolor. So we did it here. We replicated it again here, like so. And that's it. And then we're going to do the same thing just like this on our watercolor paper. So I just wanted to go over this, a second time here. And again, we have our first sketch here, like that. And you can always take your time and do this and then save it. And you can even make some, hash marks like we did here, 1/2 inch, or I should say halfway point between the top of the head and the bottom of the chin, approximately is the center of the eyes. Take that center of the eyes down to the bottom of the chin. The nose is halfway between the eyes and the chin. Then you split this again. The nose, bottom of the nose to the chin, approximately halfway is the center of the mouth. And that's it. And then anything you do beyond that, you'll just kind of, adjust accordingly. If the picture might look different, the photograph, whatever you're working from. Like here. Looks like here, whoever took this picture or whoever painted this painting, they were looking kind of up at the picture, up at the person when they were painting them. So it looks like it's from the vantage point of a little bit sitting maybe down in a chair looking up at this portrait painting, this person. So we're going to kind of try to capture that when we do our drawing. So what we'll do is we'll take a quick break. We went over a lot of stuff right in the beginning here with kind of our design, our layout, our pencil sketches, our hash marks, and dimensions. But now that you have all that, you're all ready to go. You can always save that if you do this. If you do create this, I hope you will create this type of a sketch for yourself and have it, and just keep it in a folder next to your studio where you work, your kitchen table, your stack trays, and Your studio, you might have an easel and you have an art table with some folders or some things like that. Just keep this nearby, so whenever you want to do portrait painting, you just remember these are the kind of the waypoints of the human portrait that you can use, and then from here you're pretty good. The center of the head, obviously the center of the nose is the center of the head, like this. And again, we said the hairline is usually a little bit lower than the top of the head. And that's, really a basic of it. And that's, I think, that's all you would kind of need to really get a good start with the doing some work with portraits in watercolor. And I'm hoping you will take the time to just work a little bit with portraits. I think you will find that it's really rewarding, so exciting for a watercolor artist. We're really lucky that we can have such a fun medium to work with in watercolor, and then we can also do portrait paintings and get really creative with it. And we're going to go over that next. Once we get our pencil drawing now completed of this, we're going to have a lot of fun painting it. So I'll take this here and I'll just set it over here, just so I have that as my guide for when I do my pencil drawing here. And so I'm going to take this pencil drawing. I'm going to notice right away the human head here, the portrait, is a little bit higher up in the painting, so I'll keep mine the same way. And again, I'll do the same thing. I'll just do an oval like this, just an oval like this. Doesn't have to be perfect. Do a light sketch first, and you should be fine. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Then you might just kind of check it, see how much it is. It should be about 3.5, 4 inches. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, mine's 4 inches. That's perfect. 4 inches is a good number to keep your head size, like that. And then again, you can take your halfway point of 4 inches. 1 and 2 is right here. You can draw your line across here, like that. You could put a little bit of a slight arc to it, a radius to it, like that. And then next what we'll do is we will draw our eye sockets. Our eye sockets are a little bit larger. So here in this, the eye sockets are about here, and then the eyes are a little bit smaller, and they're within those eye sockets. But the eye sockets are important to have because that's going to give us where the eyebrows will be painted in, as well as some of the details around the eyes. It's the eyes itself. So what I'll do is I'll have this as my center line for the eyes, and then I'm going to take my 2 circles here like this, and that's going to be our eye sockets, kind of like if you were drawing a skull. And then we know that in between the two, if we're now going to draw in our eyes, those are going to be 1 eye length between the 2 eyes. Like that. Okay, so we have our 2 eyes now, and our eye sockets to start with. And then we say, okay, we said that between the center of the eyes and the chin was the bottom of the nose. So we make a little bit of a hash mark there, and then we just measure it. Let's say, for instance, okay, yeah, 2 inches from the center of the eyes down to the bottom of the chin approximately. Halfway is 1 inch, so that's about right. And then we'll take our bottom of our nose here and just make a little bit of an indication of that roundness here at the front of the nose. And then maybe some of the nostrils over here, like so, 2 nostrils, like that. And then we'll go up like this. And we'll kind of make the bridge of the nose up like this. Okay, so now we have our nose, our nostrils here. We won't make a big deal of the nostrils. We'll just put a little bit of accent colors in there when we're creating the nostrils. We don't want to go too dark with that. with our pencil drawing, and then we have our cleft here, and then we have our lips, and then we're going to do our lips here, and then like this. Okay, so now we have the lips, the nose, the eyes. Now we're getting down to the chin. We can just kind of put the chin in like a little bit as a circle, just to, to start with. And then from here we can go back up, and maybe we'll put in the eyebrows. So let's do the eyelids first. So we have the eyelids here for the eyes, like this. And then above that, and this is where the eye sockets are important, because usually the eyebrows are just resting on top of the eye sockets. So that gives you kind of like a nice waypoint, a nice area to make a note to say, okay, well, the eye sockets are larger than the eyes, and the eyebrow usually sits on top, above the top of the eye socket. So that's why I do draw in the eye sockets. And then we have the same thing over here. The eyebrow is up here, top of the eye socket though. It's not really too close to the eye itself. And then we'll put our eyes in here, just maybe a couple little small indications of our eyes here, the irises and the pupils of our eyes. Okay, so you kind of see what we have here. I'm hoping you can kind of clearly see my drawing. I'm going to go over with a little bit of a darker pencil line here, so you can kind of see a little bit more what we have here. I know sometimes it's hard to see the pencil drawings. And then our eye sockets here. So this is going to be a little bit of a crude type of presentation to you, because I do want you to see the drawing. So if I just draw really light sketches, you're not going to see it, and you won't really feel like I'm giving you the information you need. So you can kind of see that I've got the eye sockets, which are large, and then the eyes themselves here within the eye. We have the eyelids, and then the eyes themselves, the actual eyeball, the iris, and the pupil, like that. And then we have the bridge of the nose here, coming down like this. We have the nostrils here. We make a little bit of a dark there and a dark here. We have the dental arch, which is the mouth. So we have that here, and we have the lips, obviously. So we have the lips there. And we're going to paint in a lot of details. So when you do your pencil sketch, you always just remember, when you're doing your pencil sketch, you don't have to worry about it. When you look at it, you might think it looks a little bit odd, maybe a little bit off, maybe a little bit awkward looking. You don't have to worry about that. As long as you're getting the basics of the head and what you're looking at here onto your paper with your pencil sketch, following our diagram that we created to start with. So if you have your basic, again, layout points here on your oval, with your halfway point is the eyes, halfway between the eyes and the chin is the bottom of the nose, between the bottom of the nose and the chin approximately is the center of the mouth, where the lips are, and then you have your chin below that, and that's it. That's really and then your ears. Of course, we're going to go with our ears about even with the center of the eyes, and then a little bit below that we have bottom of the ears are usually about where the mouth is. And there we have it. Lots of fun, kind of not too difficult. Takes a little bit of getting used to get this kind of stuff memorized or whatever. But before you memorize it, you always have this chart to help you. And then once you do this a number of times, maybe if you paint the portrait maybe 20, 30, 40 times, this will just be locked into your memory. You won't really have to refer back to your sketch. But when you first start out, maybe your first 6 months or year, you're probably going to have to refer back to a chart like this, you know, like a sketch like this with your design of the portrait. That's all I wanted to mention. And then here we're just going to do the same thing here. We're going to get our neck in here below, and that's usually almost out to the edges of the head, like this. And then we have a little bit of a shirt here, so we have some shirt over here, and the same thing over here, another bit of some shirt and shadows over here, and then we have the and that is basically really looking good. Now, let's take a quick break. We've done a lot of work so far to our portrait, sketch, and drawing. What we'll do is we'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll get our hair kind of laid out onto our head here. So we'll get our hair kind of where we want it to be. And then once we have that, we're really ready to start painting. So this is going to go pretty much quicker from here. The most time-consuming part of this is the beginning, when you're kind of getting all of your, you know, layout of your head, you know, making sure your eyes are good. Again, noticing that you have approximately an eye length over here, and an eye length over here, and then an eye length here, an eye length here, and then between the two eyes you have another eye length. So that's really your goal, to get that proper layout of the eyes, and a little bit more straightforward, just going from the center of the eyes down to the chin, and then center point here is the bottom of the nose, and then between the bottom of the nose and the chin, the center point would be the mouth itself, the crease in the mouth here between the lips. So you kind of have that. All right. Let's get excited, because we're going to be painting in just a second. But all we'll do is take a break. We'll come back. We'll get some of the little bit of hair here, like drawn in, so that we have that set for us. Because usually when you go in and you start painting, you want to have pretty much your whole sketch like in there that you need to have, where you don't have to guess anything. You just kind of know, once you start painting, you're going to know where those things are drawn in for yourself. So I would always say, kind of before you start painting, make sure you draw in your hair too, you know, so you want to have some of your hair drawn in. And then I think that's about it. Once we have the hair, we're going to be all set. I think we have everything completed before we paint. Okay, so I'll take a quick break, and then we'll start painting once we get the hair in. All right, and we said we were just going to pick back up again. We're going to get some of our hairline over here. So I'm going to look up here and say, okay, we have the hairline up here. Kind of goes like that. Comes in a little bit over here. Over here. Darks over here, so we're going to go with darker paint around the head. Okay, and then you have some above the eyebrow here. You do have a little bit of light here, so there's some light on the catching on the forehead of the portrait here, and there's a lot of light over here, but we do have some of that hair, so we will kind of just make some indications of that hair here, and like this. Okay. And I think that's fine. If you stand back and you look at things, you know, you might say, oh, maybe I can widen out the jaw over here a little bit, maybe like that. Then over here, this looks pretty good. I think the neck kind of goes up about here next to the jaw. Maybe we could just make a little bit of a accentuation of the jawline over here, like we did over here, that little bit of that angle. That looks good. And I think that looks pretty good. We are ready to paint, so we're going to grab our brushes and paints. So I usually just, mention that I use a water container like this. All my art supplies are down below in the comments section. If you ever need to look up any of my brushes, water containers, paints, palettes, any of that. I have it all down below. I also have my book down below. I hope you'll check out my book. I do have a diagram similar to what we were just looking at here, similar to this in my book. I do a few portraits in my book, so you'll have plenty of great paintings in my book, but mostly my book is your classic watercolor paintings like lighthouses, boats, gorgeous landscape paintings, city scenes. But the great thing about my book is I have a 2-minute video down below in the comment section. If you're interested in maybe looking at some of my artwork in my book, you'll realize I have every page of my book. You could look at it within 2 minutes. I flip through each page of the book really quickly, so it doesn't take too much time, and you can see all the paintings. I have over 65 paintings in my book of my best watercolor paintings that I show you how to paint. I give you all the colors, how I painted each one, the methods and techniques that I use. So it's a great like user's manual for watercolor. So if you're just starting out with watercolor, or maybe you haven't been painting that long in watercolor, my book is a great valuable resource for you. I hope you will pick it up and utilize it to your fullest. So again, we're going to get started. I'm going to take my water bucket, my water container, fill it up with clean water, and we'll start out our painting. And I think we have just a few brushes we'll use here. We'll use some round brushes. So just some round brushes, small, medium, and larger. So these are on my Charles Reed travel brushes, and then I have my number 5 Da Vinci travel brush here as well. This one's synthetic, so it has a very fine, beautiful point there. We can get a lot of good, crisp details on our portrait with this one, finer details. And then we have our 2 larger, really nice sable brushes, natural hair brushes that we can use for the majority of the rest of the painting. So these will be the brushes I'll use for the most part for this painting. And then we have paints here, my palette, of course, your pretty much standard colors that you'll see all watercolor artists like that create YouTube videos, or top professional watercolor artists that are out there. They all pretty much use the majority of these paints here. And if you need all the colors in detail, again, in my book, I cover all the details of my palette, all my colors, my paints, what kind of paints I use, what brands. That's in my book. So I won't sit here and spend a lot of time on that. I know everybody wants to start painting. So let's get started with the first glazing, let's call it, the first wash. And that's usually what we do, is we want to get a light wash in first to start with of a flesh color. So we'll kind of just go over that quickly here. And what we'll do is mix ourselves a really nice flesh tone you can't go wrong with. So what we'll do is we'll take our brush here. I'm going to use this brush here. This is the number 10 Escoda travel brush. And this is the Charles Reed series travel brush. I usually go with cadmium red for the flesh tones, cadmium red and cadmium yellow, like that. And I mix it across like this. More of the yellow over here, more red over there. Then we also want to maybe just have a little bit of some cerulean blue down here, and maybe we pick up a little bit of that in there for shadow colors if we want to. But the first wash we're going to do is basically a light wash. You can see we have lots of water in our palette with the colors, like that, lots of color and lots of water. And we're going to have a light wash again for the portrait painting here to start with. So what we do is we just basically take some red with the cadmium yellow, and we just start out right in the center of the portrait like this. And we go right where the nose is, and we kind of just get that red started right there. Let it soak into the paper a little bit. Pick up some more, like this, some more of the yellow and red. Be careful. You want to keep it looking like flesh color. And it will dry a lot lighter. So remember that. It's going to dry a lot lighter once you're done putting the wash on. All right, so we have the nose first, like this. And you can see the nose has quite a bit of darkness here. So that's why we could put that first bit of paint on there and let it just sit there a second, but not more than a second or two. Then we take our brush, and what we do is we just go like this, and then we just take our brush and we just swirl it around where the flesh is of the head, like this. We go down where the neck is too as well, like that. Rinse off our brush. Maybe you have a tissue, you dry off a little bit of the water on a tissue, go back in, grab some more, and we want to finish up that flesh tone like that. Where the ears are as well, you can go into the hair a little bit, no big deal. We'll get the ears too as well, like that. And then one last thing you can do is a little bit of the blue. Maybe over here we have a little bit of the blue. Just a little bit on the side over here for some shadow. But that's it. You have to do it just quickly, and that's it. And then you could dry off your brush a little bit and maybe smooth everything together like this over here on this side. But the basic idea is get it in fast and then just let it sit and dry. And you could dry it with a blow dryer if you want to. But that's it. That's all you have to do. You could lift up a little bit of paint on this side because we see there's a lot of light over here. So you could actually take a tissue, take a fresh tissue now because we just got a whole bunch of paint on this tissue. You don't want to go back in and keep, and then you just do this. Lift up a little bit on this side of the head to create a little bit of a light effect over here on this side of the head, like that. And that's all you have to do. And then over here is more in shadow, so you have a little bit of that blue over here. But that's pretty much, that's the whole first step you do when you're painting your portrait. That's the first step you do. You just get that red and yellow, which is cadmium red, cadmium yellow. Get that flesh tone mixed together. Find your nice ratio of red to yellow, more red than yellow. And then you just get your whole wash in there really fast, super fast, the whole area of the neck and the head and the ears. Paint over everything. And then you have to let this dry 100%. So before we go back in and start doing any details, like the dark areas around the eyes themselves, the darker paint washes for the nostrils or the lips or the chin, always remember that first light wash you do on your portrait, that has to dry 100%. So you can either do two things. You can wait like an hour or two until it dries to the touch, or you could use a blow dryer and blow dry it maybe in like 10 or 15 minutes, and you can dry it out completely that way. So it's up to you. If you want to go quickly and use the blow dryer, that's fine. Or if you want to wait an hour or two until it dries 100%, you can maybe do some errands. Maybe you have some other things you have to do. Maybe you'll be picking this up the next day, so you'll get this far, come back the next morning or the next afternoon, and you start working again. You can do that. That's fine. You can break up your painting into, time frames that work for your schedule. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quick break, let this dry naturally. I might use the blow dryer. I may not, but I'm going to take a break, relax for a few minutes, and we'll come back and we'll get started on the details of this. But we're halfway there. We're almost like, we're more than halfway there if you consider the drawing part of the whole process. So the drawing took quite a bit of time, and now we've got that first wash in. That's really a big milestone for us to get that really good wash in, where you have that beautiful flesh tone, which is again cadmium red, cadmium yellow, more cadmium red than cadmium yellow. A little bit of the cerulean blue over here on the shadow side, just to quickly get that in there too when you're doing your wash. And then you blot up a little bit of the white over here on this side, so you have a little more light over here like you see here. That's all you need to do, and then you're all set. And then now we're just going to do finishing up with some of the darker darks. We're just going to carefully look at our portrait painting here that we're working from, and just basically work from it. It's like a map for us. We don't have to really do much more work than that. We just have to keep looking back and forth here. So, okay, where's the darks in these areas here? Where's the darks? Okay, the nostrils are dark. The eyebrows are dark, the lips are dark in some areas. There's some light areas of where the lips are, like the bottom lip here has a bit of light on that, catching there. darks, really dark darks here on the underside of the chin. So we'll do that next. Once this dries, we'll go over all the darks here, the details of this portrait painting, and I'm sure you're going to be really satisfied. And always remember, you're not just going to do this one portrait and stop. You're going to work on this one maybe 2 or 3 other times to improve on it. And then we'll, in the very, very near future, we're going to pick up and we're going to do another portrait. I think I have a few right here that we can work on. The next one I think we'll work on is going to be this. So we have a beautiful male here. Now we're going to do a gorgeous female figure here, portrait here. We'll do that one next in a future video. But let's work on this one first. And again, don't be shy. Do this one 2 or 3 or 4 times. You'll get better at it each time. I guarantee you. Each time you do this, you'll be more familiar with it, repeating it. Always remember, repetition is the mother of skill. The more you are repeating something, especially if you're repeating the same thing like this over and over again, it'll become easier every time you do it. And then by the 4th or 5th time you do this same portrait like this, and we're working on this video, work with this video, join me here 3 or 4 times, just come back, put the video on again, work along with it. You do it 3 or 4 times, I guarantee you, the 4th, 3rd, and 4th time, your portrait's going to look so much better after your 3rd or 4th time, because you've repeated it a number of times. You kind of already know what's going to be, required of you to do as you're working on it. So have fun with this. This is great. Especially, I know you're really going to get excited. If you can do portrait paintings, I think you're really going to find that you have something that really is exciting and new for yourself as a watercolor artist. And I think you'll be surprised that you can actually, accomplish these type of paintings. I mean, I still work all the time on trying to better myself with my portrait paintings, because let's face it, it's not easy. Everyone will tell you that. Anyone that paints portraits will tell you it's not easy. And I'm always working at it, and I know I will be working on it, for a long, long time from now. I'll be still working on improving my portrait paintings, because they're quite detailed, quite intricate, and not simple. There's a lot of dynamics to the portrait. All the different shapes of the head, the different planes of the face and the head, the different darks and lights, the shadows. Each person is different. Each portrait we paint is a little different, because everyone's different. So these are the things you automatically just know. It's not going to be easy painting portraits, but it's a lot of fun. And the more you practice it, you'll just have more enjoyment. I guarantee it. All right, so let's just come back in a few seconds, and we'll start doing the darker darks of this portrait. And I can already feel that my paper is getting really, really dry. So we'll be able to come back in just a second. All right, we're coming back, and we're going to start putting in our darker washes, our darker glazings over the top of this. And this is dry now to the touch. And I think we'll start off with that smaller brush that we talked about, the number 5 Da Vinci travel brush that I have right here. And we're going to start using this to get some of our finer details in the eyes first. We'll start there. And I think the only thing I would do now at this point is I would just maybe take my palette and just dip my paper towel in some water. And I'll just lift up some of this paint, because it's kind of puddly. We're not going to use much puddly paint right now. We're going to use mostly straight paint out of the palette, or maybe a little bit of water, but not too much water. That first wash was quite a bit of water. This wash is going to be kind of, these next subsequent washes are going to be darker and not that much water in them. Okay, so let's do this. Let's take a little bit of cerulean blue and some raw umber like this. And again, I usually have a tissue in my hand like this to keep a check and clean, dry off some of the water on my brush. So I rinse off my brush, dry off the water on a paper towel, then I come in here and get some of that blue and raw umber, and we'll just get we'll start working on the eyes. So I'm going to do this here. I'm going to go underneath the eyelid there, and maybe a little bit of the blue. And I guess the only thing I would mention is with the eyes is try not to paint the eye so that it looks like a marble. Try to leave the eye with some light in it, so don't paint the whole thing like a round circle. I guess I could kind of mention it like this. We really don't want to make the eyeball like this, like that. We want to more or less make the eye, leave some light in there like that. Maybe it's a little bit darker up top of the iris, like that. But we want to leave some light in there. Can you see that? How it's different than just painting a round ball like that? So that's what we're looking for when we do our eyeballs here. Our irises and our pupils. And that's what I'm going to do. And I think it does look better that way. Okay, and then let's see. Burnt umber, raw umber, maybe a little cerulean blue again over here. Maybe a touch of French ultramarine blue. Burnt umber. We're just going to try to maybe get a little bit of a darker dark underneath the eyelids, like this. So I'm just looking there. And I guess let's keep it simple here. We don't want to get too carried away with too much paint on top of what we already have here. We have a beautiful underwash, that first wash. Let's not get too carried away and all of a sudden put like tons of paint on top of what we already have. What we already have here that we did first, that first glazing, that first wash, which was a light wash, as you can see, kind of light, right? It's not too dark. We can just work on now stressing some of the details that we see, but we don't want to get carried away and start putting too much details in here. So you'll see I use some burnt sienna and some cadmium red again over here, just for the nostrils. And I don't want to put, even though these nostrils are kind of large and really dark like that, I think I'm going to leave these a little more minimal. I'm not going to go as dark as I see in this painting. Even though this painting is phenomenal, I just tend to want to go a little bit less with that, kind of that dark right there. And then here we'll put a little cleft under the nose there, and a little bit of a shadow there. Maybe we'll put some more, a little bit of paint there in the lips, burnt umber, burnt sienna. I'll kind of just like this. Not too much. I'll put some paint on there, right? Some straight paint right out of the tubes. So these are fresh squeezed tube paints, right, in my palette. And I'm using those, and I'm not really adding much water to them. I'm adding no water to this, actually. I'm just using straight paint right out of the palette. And then what I do is I rinse off my brush, dry off the water, and then use a damp brush here, like a dry brush, basically. And then with that dry brush, we can take our time and really, we can get the details that we want without like flooding out the paper with too much water, adding too much paint. You know, all these problems can occur as long as you keep a check on your, that's one of your biggest concerns with watercolor is when you're working with watercolor is making sure that you're checking off water off your brush when you go to your water container. So let's say you have your water container over here. You have your water container over here. You rinse off your brush. You always want to tap on a brush or a sponge or your apron, whatever you have. Tap off something. You can have a sponge. You know, sometimes you have a sponge. You put it down next to your water container. You rinse off your brush. Tap it on the sponge or a paper towel or, again, tissue. And then grab some paint from here and then come over to your painting like this. That avoids all the like flooding out of your paper or your palette with all kinds of water. That's the key with watercolor, is controlling that water in your brush. So the best bet is always rinse off the brush, check off a little bit on water off the on the sponge, on a tissue, on a paper towel, on a toilet paper roll, on your apron. I always tap my apron a lot of times like this, or my shirt. Sometimes I wear like an old shirt or something like that, and then I don't even bother putting on an apron. I just use a shirt, and I wear like a black shirt, and I just tap off my paint on my shirt, or my water off, on my brush. So you figure out you're the artist, you'll figure out what works for you the best. But that's how we're doing it here, so that we can keep a control of that water that's in our brush and on our paper. So now you see we're working in the lips here, the nostrils here. Maybe we will put some more nostril paint there, and a little bit darker there. Okay, and then a little more, I guess, again, maybe some red here for like this on the nose. We're going to try to get that dark spot on the nose there, like that. And then what we do is we rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the water, and then maybe we just soften that out a little bit. Maybe even add a little bit of cadmium red to that, like that. And then soften it up there. And then we have another bit of dark up here. That's on the bridge of the nose going over here. And then another bit here, a little bit of shadow there. Maybe there's a little bit of blue in that. So we have we try to kind of keep these washes warm and cool. A little bit of, the blue in there. This is a little bit of blue and raw umber, maybe. Burnt umber. Right here. Like that. Then maybe some up here, like so. A little bit of red in there. If you find it's too dark or something, you can always blot it up a little bit, like that. And then maybe go back in and make it a little bit darker there. And then we have a little bit of that darker red there over the top. And we have that there. Okay, so I'm working on the eyes now, and always remember, you won't worry about the entire look of everything until you're completely done. So right now we're just working on specific areas, so it's not going to look like, it's kind of like 100% finished or accurate. We have to keep working on this as we go. And then once we have everything, pretty much all the wash is completed, then it looks like it all makes sense. But right now it's looking like we're just kind of putting in blotches of things, but you have to just kind of have faith that you're just keep following over here what you're seeing here, right? So I'm just doing the same thing I'm seeing here. I'm getting in those dark eyebrows up here. I'm getting in those washes in the eyes, around the eyes, the reddish washes around the eyes, right? Like those shadowy kind of things. And then I'm doing the same thing over here. I'm just keep following that's the kind of the darker darks there. Burnt umber, French ultramarine blue maybe, a little bit of raw umber, a little bit of cerulean blue, kind of just trying to get that dark up here for the eyebrow. And then that eyebrow dark comes right down on top of the eyelid, like that. Goes into the eye a little bit, into the corner of the eye over here, like that. There's a little bit of light there. There's some more red here, under here like that. Like that. And again, you can always blot up a little bit if you have to. If you think you need to blot up a little bit of section of paint. Okay, this is the eyebrow over here. A little bit of red over here, like that. Okay, and just we'll keep working our washes. We'll take a break in a little bit. We want to take a break every once in a while. We want to make sure that we don't. I'll put in some more flesh tones here, the cadmium red and cadmium yellow, just so we have it. We're kind of going with a little bit of a darker wash now, anyway. Some more shadow type of washes, and there we go. We start filling in here down to the nose, like that. And then we have that little bit of a dark there next to the burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. If we need a little bit of a darker dark, raw umber, some cadmium red, like that. So I put in that little bit of a dark shadow there. So you can kind of see we're just working I rinse off my brush again, dry off the water, and then just try to soften this edge out a little bit too here that we have, like that. And then we can lift up a little bit of water out of there like so. And a little bit of the red over here again with the nose. A bit of red there. So again, we're taking the old concept of just keep looking at here and referencing this the whole time. We're not making any of this up. We're just looking over here. I'm using this bit of shadow over here, right there. And trust me, I know it looks awkward right now, the painting, but when we're finished, it's going to look good because we're not doing anything other than referring everything back to this painting and kind of like just, referencing it and putting it here. Is it going to be perfect? No, but we are making sure we keep that concept going of keeping true to what we're working from over here. And again, I'm not going with anything too complex. I'll go with a little bit of that shadow under there, underneath the cheekbone. There's the cheekbone there, and then underneath. like that. Rinse off my brush, dry off a little bit of the paint, and we'll take a break in a second, okay? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break now, and I just will lightly kind of, with a damp brush, dry off the water and just sort of soften up the edges there that we just have there. Like that. And then over here like this, kind of tie it up to there. And maybe we have a little bit of that red here. Like that. Okay, let's take a break. And then we'll come back. We're going to start finishing up now and wrapping up here. I think we're really getting there. We have some more washes to do, but we have quite a bit. We have the eyes, the eyebrows, the eye sockets with the shadows. We have some of the areas of the face over here really nicely painted in. Like this. So I think we are in good shape. We're just going to have to keep working on looking at our reference photo and bringing it back over here and just kind of getting the details from here over to here. But we've been following those details from here to here, and you can see it's already looking pretty good. You know, you can kind of just notice that it does have some of the similar color and light and dark tonal values that you see here. You're seeing them here. And that's what we wanted to do. Make sure that we try to do the best job we can at transferring over those lights and darks from the reference photo to our painting. We're almost done. Let's keep working on this. And again, if you're in the middle of your painting, don't stop. If you find you have a couple problems with it, just work it all the way to the finish. Then set this painting aside and look at it the next day or the day or two, and then you'll start another one. Something different. Okay? All right, so don't worry about it. And if it comes out great, you're going to frame it. Put it in a frame. Put a mat around it. Put it in a frame. Enjoy it. Give it as a gift. Who knows? Put it in a show. I know everyone here is different. You're all at different levels of your expertise and your levels of knowledge with watercolor and experience, but let's work on it together, and we're all having fun at the same time, okay? So let's keep having fun. Working at it. What we're doing is focusing. This, we have to look at this carefully and then do the same thing here with our paints and our brush and our water and carefully work on it. And then by the end, when we're done, it should be kind of close to what we're looking for. Okay, so let's keep going for that goal. All right, be right back. All right, we're picking back up again. Let's get moving here. So we were using our small brush, again, a number 5 Da Vinci Maestro travel brush here. It's got a really nice point, as you can see, synthetic brush. We got a lot of our really good details with that. I think we'll continue with this. We still have some darks and things like that to do that are going to be needing a fine brush like the chin area. So let's start working on that area. I might just empty out my water. So I try to empty out and put fresh, clean water in occasionally as I'm working, more often than not. And this here, we're going to use the same color, so we're not going to really be changing our colors too much. So again, let's again reference this here. So let's continue on here, a little bit of this red mixed in with this here. Let's get some of this here, like that, right there. Bit like that there, and then up like this. And then if you have something where you have maybe a little bit too much paint or water, you rinse off your brush, dry off the water completely, kind of dry out your brush like that, and then you can actually lift up, touch the brush to the paper, and you can lift up some paint off there if you need to. Like that. That's better. You could add a little bit of some blue in there just to have some shadow kind of color. We have here, this is going to be we're just going to leave that the way it is. The bottom of the lip there is in light. Maybe there's a little more red here on the bottom of the lip there. Yeah, that looks better. Then we have some more shadow here underneath the bottom lip, like that. And then the same thing over here, kind of the shadow goes this way. Like that. Then we have a little more. Again, we could take some cerulean blue, raw umber. Up here we have some burnt umber and a touch of French ultramarine blue, just to get some darker darks. You can kind of see the chin over here has got that dark spot there. And then it goes up here like that. So I'm going to try to be careful about how I do this. So I just rinse off my brush, dry off the water, and then just do a little bit of softening there, like that. And then another bit of that circular pattern like that. And then there's a little bit more of the, like this, like that. A little more red there underneath here, like that. Okay, and then some more of that cerulean blue, darker darks there, like that. And then you can lift up some paint if you want to. You see how it looks. You kind of reference it back and forth like that. You can look at it, see how it's coming along. Like that. There is a little bit more of shadow under here like so. Like that. A little bit of that blue over here like so. Like that. Rinse off the brush, dry off the brush, and then soften this like this. A little bit of red here, like that. And you can see I'm really just kind of finishing up now with the, that's a little bit there like that. Oh, it's too much. I'll go back to that later and work on that later. Okay, and I think we have the basics of the head here. And the feature's pretty good. You know, you can get some more details in there if you want to. You could add a little more of a dark burnt umber and French ultramarine blue. Burnt umber, French ultramarine blue. You could get a little more of a dark in there if you want, like that. If you want to add just some more darks in there, that kind of makes it a little more exciting. If you can get some darks in there, you can rinse off your brush, dry off a lot of the water, and then you can soften this out, kind of maybe soften it up just a little bit so it's not too dark. Sometimes you have to just adjust things a little bit by lifting up a little bit of paint off, or you could blot up some paint too, like that. But we did kind of, I think, get the look that we wanted to here. A little more red here, I think. Red, cadmium yellow, red. Try to get that flesh tone again over there. Maybe a little bit of burnt sienna. Burnt sienna's over here with a little bit of burnt umber. A little bit of more dark there. I think there's some dark in there with some blue and dark over here. And then some dark over here. And there is some of that dark over there like that. Like that. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Sometimes you might take your brush, dry it off with rinse off the brush with some water, dry it off, and sometimes you can actually just soften out an area that you may have gone too dark, like with a section or something, or a part, and you just do that. You just lift up a little bit of paint if you think it's gone too dark. Over here we got a little bit of red there, a little bit of darks over here. Here, like so. Trying to get that to look good where it kind of goes across like that. And then this should go down here like this, and then more red here. So again, I'm just trying to work as much as I can to make it look as best I can. Dark, there's some dark there on the tip of the nose. Burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, like that. You could always take your tissue or paper towel, put like a crease in it like this. If you have to get like a kind of a point on there like that, you can lift it up like that. And I think we are looking pretty good. We have some good details here. A little bit of darks there, like that. Okay. We'll put a little bit of that dark there. There's some more darks over here. And what we're going to do is, I don't think I'm going to put those dark washes around the head here. I think I'm going to go and take my larger brush, which is again the number 10 travel brush. And I'll get some hair, French ultramarine blue, burnt umber for the hair, like that. Maybe a little bit of burnt sienna in there. Okay, and then I'll just try to I'm going to try to go as minimal as I can. I don't want to do that much work to this area. So I'm going to take my brush and just sort of put a couple dabs on there. Then I'm going to take my paper towel or tissue and dry off some of that paint. I had a lot of paint on my brush there. I want to take off some of that paint so that I can kind of get a dry brush kind of thing, right? Like that. You see how that's kind of not that much paint on there, and you get that little bit of that nice dry brush kind of look. And do that. Yeah, that's going to look good. Okay, and that there. So we're just going to try to keep referencing this over here. Like that. And again, a little bit over here. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep the hair very minimal. Like that. Maybe a touch down there like this. Okay, and all right. Now, what I'll do is we'll take another break. We'll let this dry. I don't want to go too much more with the hair, and then all of a sudden I have an issue where if I paint some background in there, it starts like infiltrating into the hair and kind of making it look a little bit more like messy or something like that. So you can't, never can hurt to take a break, and just, you need to kind of step back from something, look at it, and then we'll come back again and work on it a little more. But I think we are 90% of the way complete here. I hope you're having a lot of fun with this. And again, we're just working on transferring everything from here to here, so that we'll just keep referencing back and forth, looking here, looking there. A little bit of shadow there. Rinse off the brush, dry off the brush hairs with tissue. Take that little bit there. We could just have a little bit of that shadow there. A little bit of a shadow there. Okay, so let's come back in a few minutes and we'll finish up with a little bit of background and maybe a little more work around the shirt here. I think we could do a little more detail to the shirt and we should be fine. All right, we are back, and let's continue on with a little bit of background color. A little bit of maybe touch up on the shirt here, and we're all set. So we're not going to use any new colors, introduce anything new. As you know, if you're working on my channel a lot, and I hope you'll subscribe. If you're not subscribed to my channel, I hope you really will subscribe. We're always creating new videos every week, week after week, month after month, and year after year on my channel. We do all the classic watercolors every week and every month, and just as we go. We're doing boats, seascapes, landscapes, beach scenes, figures, a little bit of portraits and figures once in a while. Again, we don't do these a lot, but some people do request them, so that's why I do them every once in a while, and that's why we're here doing a little bit of the portrait painting, and I'm hoping you're really going to pick it up, and even if you think you can't do it, you can do it. You're just going to have to jot down those notes like we have when we first started. You have to jot this down, draw this out, keep it next to you whenever you're doing your next portrait painting, whoever it is. You can have fun. You can do family members. You can just take this, use this as your format, and then use a photograph of your family members, your loved ones, your friends. You can do, you can do anything. You could do like, the most exciting things, people in show business, actors, actresses, musicians, people in politics. You can have fun with it. You can do like caricatures and make them outrageous looking, so you don't have to stay with a real strict format like this. You can make things look wild and make them like caricatures, like cartoonists do. The world of portrait and figure painting is just it's for yours to just go out and explore and have a lot of fun with it. If you think you might like to, that's all it is. You have to kind of have that first spark of wanting to do it. But I really enjoy portrait painting a lot, and figure painting a lot, and I'm always just working at it a little bit here and there, and then hoping I can just learn something new every time I go at it. And so I'll just take some of the again for cerulean blue, splash a little bit on here. of cerulean blue, maybe a little bit of the flesh tone here too. So a little bit, you can't go wrong just using the same colors that we've used prior as we were going through here. And then I'm just going to do that. I'm going to take that flesh tone mixed in with a little cerulean blue, and then just maybe a little bit over on this side, like so, like that. This is the light side over here, and then on the darker side over here, maybe I'll do that and add a little more here, and maybe this is a little bit darker over here, and I just add a little bit more color, just a little more color, and a little bit darker because it is the dark side of the painting, because we have the light coming basically from this side over this way, like that. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. And then we have a little bit of the shirt here, so I'll put a little bit of some shadowing on the shirt. Maybe a little more flesh tone over here too, like that. Okay, so we have that there, maybe a little like that. And I find that's good enough. I'm happy with this. I really had so much fun doing this. And I'll just sign it here. And really happy we got together, creating some really fun portrait paintings. We'll come back soon. Again, we're going to do more portrait paintings here and there. And happy painting, everybody. Happy painting. We'll see you on the next video. Enjoy. And good evening, a good morning, and a good afternoon, everyone.